Okay, we're rolling.
All right, open the December, what's the 11th session of the Natural Resource Committee.
And we don't have an applicant interview tonight. We'll
Okay.
be postponing that until January.
Okay. Guess we'll call order, start with some public comments. All right, we got Paul Edgar.
Yes, sir.
Come on up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Paul Edgar, Oregon City. The reason why I wanted to stop here is we recently had a building permit application go through the HRB, and it's to build a house right over another wetland that has not been adjudicated. And it's one right on 3rd Avenue down by the steps that go up by where the old school and up to the park. Just to the left is a house, and then right there's the water flow is so great that the neighbor right there put a pipe, and it comes down and it creates waterfalls, and then he runs it down and it shoots up like a fountain, like a Portland City fountain. And the whole basin above there, right where they want to put a house, is a wetland. Whole vegetative corridor, wetland, marshes, all of the plants and everything, and it's not on our inventory. And even we have a not on our inventory in Kenema, the historic Kenema Waterworks. It's not inventoried, and anybody could go up there and do anything that they want to do, virtually like what's happening right now with some cottage homes, where they dug out straight marshland muck, and it filled up with water, and so they dug it out deeper and then brought in fill, moved 40,000 yards of soil to try to create a housing sites right next to the Kenema wetland, all in violation, but it's kind of afterthought. So I would love to have you guys come in and take a look around sometime. Doug has tripped the area probably a lot more than most anybody, but if you haven't, I would like to invite everyone from the Natural Resources Committee to come down and let me take you through some of this area where you can understand what it is. We've had so much construction. I used to have, 10, 20 deer in my yard all the time. And now they are severing, you might say, the animal corridor through this, been feeding people, deer and stuff out of the Kenema Bluff natural area. But you guys need to get a handle on what this fantastic resource is, why it's there, what needs to be done, so as that we in the future, we don't have these catastrophes taking place that are in violation of just natural habitat. If there's not on the inventory, then SCEWED word, and it hurts everybody. This is not just, it's the future generations. Everyone that believes in how we could, they wiped out, and we've talked about it, it's old news, but we wiped out a whole vegetative corridor that flowed from the Kenema wetlands, and they put it all into a pipe. And now they pipe this water down, and it goes into the stormwater system. And it doesn't go into the soils naturally. It doesn't rehydrate. It doesn't do what nature should be doing. And this is happening all over. And I would love to show you some waterfalls in my property where Coffee Creek drops 20, 30 feet in about 20 feet. It's just down. It's just gorgeous. I have an acre plus. And it would be nice for you guys to have a chance to see what this is and understand all of these vegetative corridors, the creek corridors, the animal corridors, and just what was there naturally. Because on my property, you can see an area, because it's been in the family 130 years.
Oh, we thank you for your time, Paul.
Yeah, you can see what the plant life was really like. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Pete, I'm going to ask you a question. It's not on the inventory, but if the property, in fact, is a wetland, gets filled, is there any, in the review process, is there any requirements to look at the impact of filling that up on the rest of the resources?
Well, there's two things I don't know. Where this is,
Yeah, no, I understand. Mine's more of a general question, actually.
and generally, in Kenema, you oftentimes have two overlays. You've got the geologic hazard overlay and you've got the natural resource overlay. And in most cases, wetlands that are not inventoried will touch that NROD boundary and subsequently be subject to the vegetative corridor. So there's that. If it doesn't do that, the impact associated with doing any fill or grading is limited to the Public Works Department's review of a grading permit or the excavation that's under review subject to the Geologic Hazard Overlay District. So there's probably going to be one or both of those things occurring. Outside of the city's review, they are required to provide notice to DSL if they suspect there's a wetland there. Right? Under state rules. And then the general threshold for DSL is if it's 50 cubic yards or less, they won't issue a permit for it, but they will review a delineation if they want one done. And we've only had that happen once so far, which was with respect to the Kenema Cottage Housing Project. So, it's always a case-by-case situation. But, our ordinance clearly says that if it falls outside the NROD and it is not a locally significant wetland, meaning it doesn't meet the criteria for being a locally significant wetland, then it doesn't get a vegetative corridor. It does still is subject to whatever state protections or Corps of Engineers protections are there. Yeah.
Now, coming to the waterworks portion of it, that, of course, is a historic element as well as the times I've been there have been water running through that system.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the historic aspect of it because I'm not familiar with the HRB's review of that situation, the Historic Review Board's situation. But
I presume it's not.
I presume it's part of the natural drainage system at some point. Yeah. And stormwater standards of, our stormwater and grading and design standards now are, well, they're currently going to be updated, and you're going to be hearing from Public Works about that in January. So there's going to be some purview of development review under those standards. But I don't know if, I know the engineering departments will sometimes require downstream analysis, but not an upstream analysis. They want to know how much water is flowing off of a site and how much new impervious surface is created and where that water is going off site. And depending on where it's going, then they will require that downstream analysis to see whether there's erosion potential or sedimentation potential. And that's all in the stormwater grading design manual, which is an engineering specification. So it's not related to the Natural Resource Overlay District. It's a separate regulation.
I'm sure not, I'm sure the waterworks itself will not be on the inventory, because I believe when they did the inventory, it was strictly on buildings.
Okay.
I don't think that was ever considered.
Well, if the committee wishes, we'll do some research and come back and report to you about.
Yeah,
I'd like to get public works.
now getting on the inventory is the property owner's request. At one point, the city actually put several houses on the inventory, and the laws have changed that require the property owner to put the property on the inventory itself, and I'm just thinking of the waterworks specifically. My guess it's not on the historic inventory.
I don't believe so, but I would have to confirm with Kelly Reed. Yeah, I don't think it is. But let me write that down.
I don't personally see a problem with us taking a tour, but I would prefer that it be organized through the planning commission, through the planning itself,
Yeah, sure.
and for staff to actually be part of that process.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine that someone from Public Works would want to be there too. John Lewis or one of the stormwater crew.
Yeah, I think formalizing it would be a good thing to do too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And we will talk about timing and see what we can work up. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you guys would like to, we could switch the agenda around and get the presentation first and then talk about the work plan.
Yeah, that'd be good. I agree.
Okay. In that case, let me just do some agenda rearrangement real quick. Okay.
That's good.
That was clever, wasn't it? All right. You're welcome to start. All right. Oh, let me introduce you. Okay, so this is Brian Martin, project manager with Lango Hansen Landscape Architecture. And we also have Denise Conrad, but Denise she can't speak very well tonight, so we're not going to ask Denise to speak. But Brian's going to give us a presentation on the Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park, which has been submitted for a land use application. And take it away, Brian. Thanks.
I need to speak into the mic, or is it okay?
I don't think I can give you this. And it should work. Yeah, you can if you want to sit and just speak to the mic, and yeah, because we do need to get your audio.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I don't know how familiar you are. This is Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park, and it's located just south of, this is the bus barn up here. So we have Myers Road, High School Avenue, and Glen Oak Road down there. So it's currently an 8.5 acre site. There's some existing trees in the middle here, some Oregon white oak and Oregon ash, a couple of Douglas fir here, and then a lot of blackberries that have been partially removed from the site, a couple of other structures that we'll be taking down as part of the improvements of this project. So just a quick rundown of the improvements associated with this project. We have some circulating accessible pathways throughout the site. On the top of the site, we have some on-street parking for about 25 vehicles. So this Myers Road was recently brought up to city standards, but we will be improving the half-street right-of-way for High School Avenue and Glen Oak as part of this project, including the sidewalks that are not there at all, and the stormwater planters. On-site improvements include about a 1 acre dog run area, fenced-in dog run here, a memorial plaza for Tyrone S. Woods, play area, an inclusive play area. And then down here we have a couple pickleball courts and a skate spot. And then I think probably there's a large open lawn area here and a picnic shelter and a restroom.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, and it's because the mics aren't being used, I guess. Are you hearing them okay?
Yeah, but I can see the issue.
You turned up my hearing aid and it didn't work.
One button. Let's see, mute. Oh, okay. Perfect. Test. Test.
There you go.
Thanks. I'll adjust it in there.
Okay. Sorry about that.
So could you go back to that fenced-in area there? And that's where I was starting to visit.
This is about a 1 acre fenced-in dog run area. There's a restroom up right near the outside with drinking fountains. We have a memorial plaza here for Tyrone S. Woods, a large lawn open space, a picnic shelter here on the north side of that. And then this is our inclusive play area, a skate spot down here, a couple of pickleball courts, and another picnic area below that. And I think pertinent to this group, this is Caulfield Creek running through here. So we have the 50-foot NROD setback from that. This is a smaller, just under half-acre wetland, pretty severely degraded right now. And then so it doesn't actually have the NROD buffer, but we're doing our best to limit any development in that. And I should note that this is basically what we're seeing here is phase 1 of the improvements. There's a planned phase 2, which will come with some more rehabilitation and planting within the wetland area, including some boardwalks. I don't have a large plan, but I can pass this around to you guys. It kind of gives you a sense of what phase 2 looks like. So there's some boardwalks, and more intensive replanting of that whole vegetated corridor and wetland area.
Stream. Yep. Mm-hmm. Is it open water at all, or is it just vegetated?
The creek is open water.
Okay, but not the wetland.
Correct. It currently is more of like a horse pasture right now with very limited vegetation.
It's always wet year-round, or is it ephemeral?
Definitely not in the summer, yeah.
Okay.
So, as part of this phase, there are actually some off-site sewer work improvements that are impacting NROD elsewhere within the city, and we will be mitigating for those impacts on our site within the NROD here. There's about 150 trees and 750, give or take, plants that'll be planted in that zone. For the time being, we're going to seed this with a wetland mix and seed the surrounding areas with a riparian transitional mix. And then the whole NROD area will also be overseeded with the riparian mix as well. So in some ways, we're doing a lot of improvements now, getting rid of all the invasive vegetation, but then kind of land banking it for more future investment with the boardwalks and signage and interpretive center. I should mention that there's an existing residence right here that is to remain.
Oh, yeah.
Which is property of Parks.
All right. And one question I think I asked you guys earlier, but in the code it talks about the difference between a locally significant wetland and one that isn't. And if it's not, then the vegetation corridor doesn't apply. But I'm not sure that, I'm pretty sure that the NROD report talks about that somewhere.
Yeah. There's a couple reasons why this is not, does not qualify. It's under the half-acre threshold, just under that, and also the quality of it right now with the plantings and basically the filtration and the water quality that it's not providing.
Right.
So a number of different reasons that
and the only improvement that really comes close to that is the nature, the playground.
Yeah, there's the path that goes near that, but we're really making this as level as possible and usable as possible. We really pulled the grading as far away from the wetlands as we could.
Okay. I have a question about the
I'm looking at the existing conditions, which show a house and a barn and a bunch of, like an old farmstead there on the bottom third. Is that all going to be removed?
So this house you can barely, you probably can't see it from there, but there's a house right here, that's gonna stay, and the associated garage, there's another outbuilding, but there's a barn here in the middle that's
Right.
going away.
That will go.
And then there's, much farther away, there's another outbuilding up here that's going away.
Okay.
So the barn that's closest to this wetland is being removed.
So is that going to be a private in-holding, or what's the ownership status?
It's all owned by Parks.
It
So
is.
it's- Yeah.
So they're
so
going to use it as a facility, or?
they rent it out right now,
okay.
just as a private residence, and my understanding is that they'll continue to do that until phase 2 is ready to be implemented.
Right. Okay. Because
So there's some small measures being taken to buffer that from the
Yeah.
park proposal phase 1.
Okay. Yeah, some of that comes right up to the stream, it looks like. So.
Yeah, and
I don't know how the
runs
Enrod
right through their
buffers.
backyard.
Yeah, I don't know how the Enrod buffers the creek there, but it's going to overlap
Yeah, I was
with
looking
the
on
driveway and other.
It does, and some of that, it's right in their backyard. We're really not touching that. We're keeping that as part of that residence.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the limited work skirting that area, but
Yeah, pages 20 and, actually, page 20, 19 through 21 have some good diagrams of where the vegetative corridor sits in relation to the house
Okay.
and the garage. So,
I was on the Parks and Recreation Committee when it was brought to us, and I see that you've made changes in the layout that I know the PRAC recommended, and I'm glad to see that. I have concerns about houses, and that's basically on the historic, it's not on the National Register or the local register, but a house that is on Atkinson Park. It is deteriorated. It has not been used. There's talk about whether to do that on the part of the city commission. But I guess my concern is we're going to have a house, and we're Parks is extremely underfunded, and I'm concerned about a piece of property that ultimately is not going to be maintained because there aren't the funds available to do it. And I guess that's the big concern I see of me keeping that house.
Okay.
Now, if its future really hasn't been determined at this point, it's just currently been leased, and its future hasn't been determined, that's one thing. But I'd be very concerned about the long-term use of that facility in terms of our highly unfunded, not only on the staff side, but in terms of the conditions of our parks, in terms of parks maintenance is highly underfunded.
yeah, it's actually, I don't know if you've seen the document, it's part of phase 2 improvements. It's more of a visitor center, so there's a small parking lot that would be improved with that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that necessarily speaks to your concern, but it's the improvements, it would be part of those improvements. It would be, and it's in good condition now.
Yeah.
But it is part of phase 2. It is identified as something that would be, I guess, always there as part of the park.
we're talking about, which house are we talking about?
The existing
Glen Oak-
residence
Glen
here
Oak
at the
Road?
far south.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other comments and questions?
Good. What's the story of the park? Its history, or its significance, I guess. If it's going to have an interpretive center, what is it interpreting?
I think it's directly connected with you'll see the boardwalks and the wetland itself in
Okay.
Caulfield Creek there. So it's related to the,
So once that's restored
aquatic
into
nature, that's
more of a
what it would be
natural
there for.
system, then
Yeah.
it would be a nature walk
Yeah.
or something for.
and I think since that original visioning took place, there was
the twin goal of it being the memorial, the Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park, but that's not, to my knowledge, directly involved with that structure itself.
All right.
Right, that's an important point to make, yeah.
Okay.
So Caulfield Creek. All right.
Doug, do you know much about the creek? How significant is that?
It's significant. It's, I mean, it doesn't have any anadromous fish. I don't think they could ever get up there, but it's cutthroat trout in it.
Really? Okay. All right. And what does it interconnect to?
At various places in the old days when they put in housing developments, a lot of it got piped. That's no longer possible. So if you go down Glen Oak, you can actually see the creek on the left side as it meanders, and then on the right side until it finally comes out, and through some of the housing developments, because now they don't pipe them. The upper part is actually piped at the start. I believe it starts in an area that's called Fairway Downs, which is on Beaver Creek, but it does go across Highway 213.
Okay.
And it enters a fairly large pond. If you're going down, if you're where the Winkle is,
yeah.
Okay. If you go further south on the road and look down, you'll see first of all an apartment complex, and then you'll see a large pond. It's called Two's Pond, and it feeds into Two's Pond, and then that goes directly out of this city and down into the countryside after that. But we have it is a rather major tributary to Beaver Creek.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I suspected. But.
There's one other point I should make. It doesn't show it on this plan, but right now there's a gravel road that bisects the entire site, and to get over the creek, there's a culvert there, and that will be removed as part of this project. So it'll be
phase one.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Be daylit again for that section.
What would it be replaced with? Anything?
Just the bank condition. There won't be any crossing at that point.
Oh, I see. So it'll be completely removed.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are in the public comment period for this, so any comments that you have be on the record.
I guess I made by one.
Okay. And we won't have minutes right away, but we'll have.
I guess that's more of a prac question than it is probably a natural resource question. But.
Yeah.
One thing from a planning standpoint that happened with the design, the location of the parking was changed to meet the intersection spacing standards that we have, because High School Avenue is considered a minor road in relation to Myers Road. So normally we would have required, anyway, the entrance point to the parking lot is as far away from the intersection as it can be while still remaining on the property. For safety reasons, and to allow for turning and sight distance for the turn lanes on Myers Road, because across the street is the bus facility, and they have driveways that they're making sure they can see one another as the large vehicles come through.
One thing I might mention to get some thought to is in the terms of the treatment of the creek. I think 213 might be something of a barrier, but Dan Tews, who lives next to Tews Lake, has seen in the culvert going under 213, apparently there's some blockages that retains gravel, and he has seen cutthroat trout actually spawning in the culvert itself, and that sometimes happens. If adults get up that far, I think juveniles gotta get into there. Adults get up that far when taking a look at the creek, whether there is some possibility of creating some spawning habitat in that section. And that's one thing that maybe we as a committee could request is that possibility will be looked at.
And definitely, if not during this phase, during the much more intensive phase 2, when that is restructured through there. But that's a great idea. It's good to get that inside
And there
information.
may be some other fundings that, I'm on Oregon City's, Great Oregon City Watershed Council, and there might be some future grant funding that we could direct that direction if we could have a study going on just to see what the occupancy there is and see if there are juveniles up there, they can get up there. They're getting up there somehow. And so there must be some spawning up there someplace. And whether that we could take a look at that spot.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions. Emails? What's the time? I mean, I know it's public comment and all that stuff, but what's the potential timing of the whole phase 1? Or what's that look like?
Yeah, hopefully, if all goes well, permitting process and everything, construction May-ish through end of summer.
Okay, cool.
So sooner than later.
Yep.
He has to go out to bid and all of that. So the land use decision, I know Kurt Longo, I spoke to him last week about timing, and I know we'll try to get a staff report by mid-January issued. And then there's public improvements associated with it, so the sidewalks and all the public improvements have to be reviewed by engineering, which may take some time. So that's not planning department, that's public works that reviews that. So we'll have there is an existing sidewalk on Myers Road, but it'll have to be altered to accommodate the parking lot entrances and modifying the stormwater swales on Myers Road, and then the sidewalks on High School and Glen Oak are going to be new.
Yeah.
With tree wells, is that what they're proposing along there?
Tree wells in this section, longer strips of stormwater swales.
Okay.
And some tree wells there. Kind of a combination of getting parking on there and stormwater treatment.
Is there parking on both?
And in this strip and then in that strip. And then on-street parking there and there.
Okay. And then Glen Oak would be slightly widened, or with a bike lane along there. And I'm not sure if there's a bike lane on High School, but I know there's. I
believe there is.
There is, yeah, okay. So there'll be bike lanes on all three frontages. Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you. Yep.
Pete, how long has this project been ongoing? I mean, that earliest document I found was it looked like 2014 or 15. So
Yeah, I mean, the initial legislative file was 2014
Okay.
when they had brought the park into the parks plan.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how has it gotten funded? How is this being?
Ooh, how was this all funded?
Part of it's a state grant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, part of it's a state grant. Is that right? The funding?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool.
Okay. And SDC, assisted development charges. Yeah, the parks, SDCs. So
How long has the city owned the site? Do you know?
I don't know.
I think it predates 2014.
Is it?
I think so.
yeah, I think so too. It was maintained a lot of blackberries for a long time. So.
Yeah. Good. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Let's see. Okay.
All right.
Old business. see, coming up, I wanted to talk to what we talked about at the last meeting, which was the preliminary discussion we had about reviewing the process for removal of trees on public property. Staff has not put together any draft yet for you to look at. We will work towards getting you something in January. And Nancy Brochot offered to help take a look at that once we've got it drafted. I do need Public Works and Parks departments to take a look at that draft too.
I'd be very interested in looking at it as well.
Yeah, okay, great. And I expect that, we'll probably go through several iterations, kind of like we did with the Heritage Tree Code. Christina, the senior planner that I work with, and I had originally thought about basically keeping the language in there limited to the public tree code section in chapter 12.08, but basing it off the eligibility criteria of trees in the Heritage Tree Code. And then we'll come up with a series of notification procedures, and considerations for alternatives and mitigation and that sort of thing. So we'll have that before you, and wanted to add that to your work plan because it's not currently part of it, if you're amenable. Let's see. And then we are going to be getting a couple of heritage tree applications submitted before December 31st, which will need to come to you before Arbor Day for a recommendation.
Good. Who's bringing them forward?
So one was submitted in 2017, but we had the arborist requirement, so they didn't move it forward. That was the one on that Dee nominated and the property owner's consent at the corner of Lynn Avenue and the Sugar Maple at the corner of Lynn Avenue, and Holmes. Getting input from staff. I haven't got any input from Public Works staff on that yet because it's almost in the right of way and it's right at the intersection. So we wanted to make sure that we're fully aware of any improvements that might be needed to that intersection in the future. I don't know. But just taking that into consideration, and then that's all I have formally submitted so far. So we'll get some more, and we'll bring that up. And that's all I have. Did anybody have any comments on the work plan that you wanted to add or refine?
I look at this top up here that has listed the people on the committee, and I think the implication is that we should have certain responsibilities in some of these areas, and I don't know anything is checked then. I guess I would say that's something probably that'll wait early next year when we have the new board members on and so forth. But particularly on the heritage tree piece, we've talked about ourselves nominating trees that perhaps are in the public right of way or something of that nature.
Right.
And so when that new board comes together, I think it'd be great if we could actually
go through the process as the committee.
More formal process, and actually perhaps some of us go out and look at trees and make recommendations in the process.
Yeah. Wouldn't be a bad thing to do. Has there been any word on the candidate we interviewed last time, Pete?
Chris Weaver, I haven't heard anything yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So the candidate that we were going to interview tonight asked me some good questions about what your role is as a committee, because he admitted that he doesn't have a lot of natural resources experience. But
Yeah,
he wants to
no
be
said in the
involved,
application.
and he doesn't want to just fill a seat if there's somebody out there in the community who's better qualified. But I said, well, let's wait and see how we're looking until January and keep your options
I
open.
mean, I was thinking, looking at his involvement with the children in particular.
Right.
Of course, I think we filled our position, so it's too late for a crack. But
Oh,
so all
okay,
positions
yeah.
are filled.
All right.
At least recommendations have been made in terms of the open spaces, so that would not be a possibility at this point. But on the other hand, we just don't have many applicants coming in.
No, we don't. If we do get more, we'll just kind of treat it as rolling applications, and fill them as need be. Okay, so.
So we have 2 openings, or 3?
2.
Okay. All right. Do you have to be a resident of Oregon City?
There's, you have to work, reside, or have do business in Oregon City, and it's not specified what business is.
And none of your business.
I would probably draw a more bright line and say if you're doing business, you actually have to make your livelihood at it.
Okay,
So,
well,
yeah.
the Native Fish Society just hired the new development director. who's
Okay.
a longtime friend of mine, awesome.
And I wouldn't necessarily say it has to be
biologist.
compensated work, it could just be nonprofit work as well, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She works a lot for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
important organization in Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Based right here. So
Great. No, I think that qualifies.
I can twist her arm a little.
Okay. I'd be happy to talk to her, answer any questions.
Yeah.
I would suggest that you're not going to interview at this point. Give them an opportunity so we could have that application. It's nice to have more applications than you have positions open. But
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
She might be. I will ask her tomorrow.
Okay.
We usually have lunch every couple of days.
Yeah. The other things that potentially are more specific tasks related to the second page, NRC Responsibility 2, which is the comprehensive plan. We're moving forward with the grants from Department of Land Conservation and Development and Oregon Department of Transportation. And both entities have tentatively approved the grant funding for the update of the comprehensive plan. Which would be a year at least of a visioning process followed by a year or 2 of comprehensive plan update work with a significant amount of public outreach and a fairly large project advisory committee made up of multiple stakeholders, not just technical and staff, but also folks from the community from all walks of life. And NRC would have to, or not have to, we would ask you to maybe designate a member to serve as an NRC liaison to the comprehensive plan process. So it is a time commitment. I don't know. I think we're budgeting at this point for about 12 project advisory committee meetings.
Over 1 year, 2 years?
Over 2 years, yeah.
how much? Could you repeat that?
12 project advisory committee meetings over the course of 2 years. Yeah, but that's formalized
I've heard
meetings.
12 advisory committees.
Well, we did consider that, and then we thought better of it. We said we don't want as many committees as we have land use goals. The idea was to try to lump land use goals together in a more of a meaningful way that people would understand. So the idea would be that the comp plan, when it's ultimately developed, is going to have sections One is going to be economy, one is going to be culture and natural resources, one is going to be equity and housing, natural environment, and what's the other one? Well, land use. We have to devote something to land use and transportation. That's the fifth module, which is typically when you look at an old style comprehensive plan, that's all it looks at is land use and transportation. And you don't focus on the other aspects that aren't like that, but we won't be doing that this time around. So this is a model that different communities have taken to try to make their comprehensive plans more approachable and useful over time. And hopefully it will end up that way, and I think it'll all depend on how much public involvement we get. So, and can budget for.
Yeah, that's a process.
Yeah. All right. So that's in line with that.
And so when do you think that would start? I mean, obviously sometime.
I'm thinking March.
Okay.
We'll have a scope of work, hopefully.
Yep.
ODOT, you know, they like to kind of put these finite timelines on things because they manage the grant for the city. And the deliverable schedule that they have is pretty ambitious, I think. So I think it always takes a little longer than you think it's going to do. You know, either because of...
A little?
Yeah, a lot. What we were planning to talk about was like, you know, getting a product ready for adoption and not try to roll the adoption process into the, you know, the final piece because it's unpredictable and a lot can happen during that process. So, but, so there's that. All right. Next up, communications. Let's see. I was going to say. Next meeting, we'll have a presentation from the Audubon Society, and we'll also have a presentation from Bob Balgos from Public Works on the update to the Stormwater Master Plan. And this is the actual update of the plan as opposed to the design standards. There's been some presentations given already to City Commission. I think they have an update going to the City Commission on December 20th. And there's a memorandum being put together by the city attorney to the City Commission that should be available in the packet, I believe.
When do we make a report to the City Commission?
I think January.
Okay.
Oh, you mean as far as
What we've done in the last year? I mean,
Trent?
Yeah, I did that a couple, 3 weeks ago.
oh, okay, so that's been done.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Did
that's
that.
great.
Thanks, Trent.
Yeah. It's like, ooh, spotlight.
So there's that, and what else? We just uploaded the various missing middle housing guides to the website. So accessory dwelling units, cluster housing, duplexes, and 3 to 4 plexes all have a nice, easy to read narrative discussion about what these development types are. So that's one of the final deliverables from the Equitable Housing Project. And then we also did this cool mapping application, which is sort of a generalized zoning where it says these are all the areas in the city where you can build a certain type of housing. And it's a lot easier to figure out rather than trying to navigate between the zoning code and a zoning color on the map. It still has zoning on there, but it's easier to find your way.
Well, I mean, I know you, I think you sent us something on that. I hadn't opened it up.
Yeah.
But in terms of established neighborhoods that are pretty well built out.
Right.
I know you can have accessory units there, but what else is possible?
Well, the city adopted, principally what we adopted affects the medium density and high density and mixed use and commercial core areas in the city. We allow corner lot duplexes in the R10, R8, and R6 zones. We still will have to implement House Bill 2001, which came out after, and that is going to affect the low-density neighborhoods as well. Basically, what the bill says is that you have to allow up to a 3 to 4-plex in any zone where you already allow single family, and that's a statewide rule. So. But it doesn't specify, it doesn't say that you can adopt certain density standards and design standards for that development. You know, those can be adopted locally. And then, you know, you're basically just setting the table zoning wise. Whether or not the market reacts to it is a totally different thing. It also says, in that bill, it also says that you have to conduct a housing needs analysis to determine, you know, where and where the likelihood of that development happening is and what. It doesn't mandate that you provide additional incentives beyond zoning. So you still have to conduct infrastructure analysis to determine that you can serve these areas and things like that. And there's state funding to do that analysis, and they haven't come out with rulemaking yet. So there's a lot of bits and pieces and actual model code that the Department of Land Conservation is writing. And if you don't adopt your own local version of that, the model code goes into effect in 2022. So that's how that works. So we'll be dealing with that as we move towards the finalization of the comprehensive plan. I anticipate. So that's other news. Code amendments for Court of Appeal. I think that's the majority of the big news we have. I should mention this, sorry. Forest Edge Apartments, formerly known as Newell Canyon Apartments, I believe, which were the ones that were closed a few years ago because of an active slide. So what's been going on with that is that they want to rehabilitate the buildings, and what they've done is they gave a presentation to the City Commission about the mitigation work they've been doing. What they did was put in wells to just to take water off the site and completely take water off the site in the vicinity of the buildings during the wettest part of the year. So they sunk about 14 of these big wells down into the ground, and then they have piezometer monitors that measure movement down in there and moisture level. So they're
on site?
On site, yeah.
What do they do with the water?
I think they pump it into the storm system. And they are seeking city approval for that. It requires a site plan approval for some minor changes to impervious surface, but they're also relocating some drainages within the NROD boundary. And they haven't put together a final NROD application yet. So that site was approved prior to the water resource overlay district that we first had in place, I think. And so we're reviewing it against the NROD standards as verification, I believe, with some minor impact for utility line crossings. Yeah.
So that won't be a permanent storage unit. That is, it's going to be pumped back out.
That's the intent.
Because
Yeah.
because it seems otherwise you'd be just waterlogging a area that was probably a sump to begin with, and then sag is what I meant to say, a sag to begin with, and
Yeah.
it could trigger sliding.
Yeah, just make it.
It's early days because, yeah, I mean, the hydrology there is, there's so much above it. And it's sort of a little shelf where you can see that there's probably water collecting down in there. And, the message from the commission was, no promises at this point in time. So regardless of the land use application criteria, so they're very concerned. So that's going on. I thought I'd mention that to you. And that's all I have for now. I did want to say thank you very much to Matt and Jerry. I'm sorry Jerry's not here. For all your time and participation over the years. It's been great. And we'll miss you.
Yeah, 3 years goes quick.
Yeah, hopefully
Good to hear. Yeah, we'll miss you, and I will miss Jerry a lot too, because he's been a wealth of information and experience in this area, and it's gonna be a tough one to top for sure. So, but all the best to you guys. So.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
I got a couple of things to talk about.
Yeah, so if there's no other communications.
I do have.
Okay. You do? Yeah. Okay, good.
Just from the Natural Resource Committee, in March we'll be putting in our request for the money that's coming into the what's called the focused investment partnership that we have with 3 other watershed councils, and we have certain monies that are directed towards lower Newell Creek and upper Abernathy Creek above Monopo Dam. And down on the Newell Creek area, we'll be putting in the request for those funds. It'll be a case of bringing in woody material into the lower part. I think it's a total of about the river mileage is more than a mile. It's where it goes into the Abernathy Creek, which is on the if you're facing north, it's on the right side of 213, all the way up to the culvert where the water is on the streams on the other side. It's over a mile, and it's intended to improve fish habitat. We know that steelhead spawn in that area, and the potential of coho spawning in that area as well. The other one is really to be determined, but we have had electrofishing up above Monopo Dam, and half the Abernathy watershed is above that dam that's on Henrici Road. And the quality up there in terms of the environment is pretty good. There was areas that were thought to be major fish passage areas, but had electrofishing done. They saw lots of steelhead up in the upper reaches, and this electrofishing was just done within the last 4 or 5 weeks. But they saw 2 coho reds up for 2 coho juveniles, and we weren't sure that the coho could really get up there or not. So we know there's a presence, which is notable, and then we'll be going out to look at specific projects that can be done up above there in the future. So those are 2 things. The other thing, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it, and we've had this agreement now into the 2nd year with Public Works, where Public Works, I forget what they call it, but certain standards they have to meet, and part of the standards that they have set up is to provide stream shading, and not only within the city on Abernathy Creek, but outside the city, and they've identified specific areas, and the Greater Watershed Councils have gotten $5,000 a year to work on for this year, for this coming year and last year, to work on shading projects down there. We're working with 3 property owners. And probably that will be an ongoing distribution of funds coming in from the Public Works Department. So those are things that we are specifically involved in there.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's part of the stormwater discharge permit that the city has,
Yes.
right? Okay, NPDES permit. Okay. Which I guess we can talk more about in January too.
How's that?
We will be talking more about that in January too,
Okay.
with the stormwater master plan update. Anything else from members? Thanks for all your work this year. I think we've got a lot done. We had a lot of code and policy stuff to look at.
Well, and you too, Pete. Thanks for all your help with this committee and keeping us on track and all that too. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll continue. No doubt about it. So
Future agenda items?
yeah, so like I mentioned, we'll have a couple of presentations. One of those will be, you'll be commenting on a legislative action. So I think the file will be open for comment until the city commission makes a final decision on it. I anticipate that's the case. So that's the stormwater stuff. And then the other one is just what Jerry had originally asked us to have a presentation from Audubon about, which was lighting impacts on bird habitat and other ways to build to mitigate impacts on birds with buildings. So it should be interesting. I can't remember the lady's name, Rita.
They should also have a new backyard habitat coordinator. I know they were searching for a position.
Okay, yeah.
It'd be interesting since
Yeah, we had like one of them. One day came in 2 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah,
it was a good presentation, but yeah, like I said, the person's changed.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was going to suggest that actually come back to us. They apparently had some cities that were already involved in it. I think they were interested in getting Oregon City, but I don't know if they've done anything formally. I don't have anything in my backyard, but I do in my front. And
Yeah.
so I would like to front yard habitat piece to, that I might, what I liked about what they presented, it's, they got different levels of award, 10% native plants, and there's other things that they want done, and another level, I don't know, was 20%, another was 50%. So, I mean, it wasn't this dogmatic thing where everything has to be native plants.
No,
And that was good. I mean,
Yeah.
so, yeah, if they're not going to discuss that at this meeting, I would like to have that come back to us again.
But there's Columbia Land Trust and Audubon.
Yeah, they were both involved in that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
All right.
And that meeting's on the 8th of January next month.
Yeah, it would be on the 8th of January.
Yeah, because the 1st is a Wednesday.
And we would have an interview as well,
Yep.
potentially, if he's interested in January still. Let's see. Okay. All right. All right. So if there's nothing else.
I had requested a non-public session second.
Yeah, I talked to Steve about it. We'll turn the mics off and talk about that.
Okay, we'll adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you.